When it comes to making coffee at home, one of the biggest complaints we get is people saying it's too bitter. The problem that usually happens is they over extract it. So when you extract your coffee shot, the first little part of coffee that comes out is very, very strong, very sweet, almost syrup-like. The next part is less sweet, but it's starting to move towards bitterness. And then the next part really is over extraction. So you're starting to pull out a lot more caffeine, a lot more of the impurities that are there in the grinds of the coffee. And that really is why you get bad tasting coffee. So essentially, you want to focus on the flavor. Now, the thing is, every different coffee has a different profile. You need to do different things to extract the best flavor from it. So the key thing really is the grind, the fineness of the grind, the darkness of the roast also has a bearing. And again, depending on how the bean has been roasted and how it's been ground, will require you to make a few adjustments to your machine. Most home coffee machines have a full range of adjustments. I've chosen this Smeg machine particularly because it allows us to set the temperature. We've got 3 settings, so it's not the most advanced, but it's certainly a good budget machine. You can have cool, medium or hot. You can also adjust the length of the shot or the size of the shot, and generally you want that to be as low as possible. Now, a little experiment that you can do, because there's a lot of guesswork, a lot of trial and error, and anything that involves the flavor or the taste of coffee is subjective. We're all different. We've all got very different preferences and opinions when it comes to the coffee that we drink and that we make. So one little experiment we can do is just to extract 3 shots of coffee. So I've got here 3 little cups. So I'm going to set the machine to be fairly short extractions of coffee, and we're just going to compare the different notes between them. So I'm going to use a double shot of coffee for this example. So give it a good old tamp, press it right down, make sure it's nice and smooth in there. So we've got a very short extraction first of all. So the water is just starting to come through the coffee itself. And I'm going to stop it there. So that's usually far less than most people would want to extract from their coffee maker. So just swapping the glasses over now. We're going to do another short extraction. Try and time that so it's about the same size. And then we'll do a 3rd shot. So I don't know how obvious it's going to be just looking at the colour, but that's the first shot of coffee that we extracted. The second shot. And then the 3rd shot. So you can see that the 3rd shot is an unpleasant colour. Now just imagine if I'd filled this cup up completely. We're going to be dealing with a very bitter, bad tasting coffee. So the flavour profile of this first shot, it's really strong, it's really sweet. You can detect all the different notes of the coffee flavours. So in this case, it's a very, very chocolatey aftertaste. There are hints of citrus in there as well. But you really get the benefit of that from this initial shot. So the second part of the shot that I took, it's still pleasant, but it's not as sweet, it's not as strong. So if I was making coffee, I would probably aim to be somewhere between the 2 of these with this particular grind and this particular darkness of roast as well. Now this final part, it actually has very little coffee flavour at all. There's a very, very bitterness to that. So if this had got mixed in with these other 2, it's going to hamper the flavour. So most people, when they get a pod machine, the tendency is to fill the cup up and then just top it up with milk. So what you should do is extract the coffee that you actually want. So these first 2 shots, so it's just a few seconds of extraction. So that's not a great deal. Most people consider that inadequate when it comes to coffee. So you would look to top that up. And it's this little shot of coffee that makes the basis for so many different drinks. So if you were doing a cappuccino, you would mix that with warm milk and foamed milk on the top. If you were doing a flat white, you would have micro foamed milk blended throughout this. If you were doing a latte, you would just pour in hot milk and top that up with hot milk. So the espresso shot is a key component for all these different types of coffee. So depending on how you make that initial extraction will have a big bearing on how nice that coffee is. So bear in mind, a lot of the pods that you buy are very, very small. They're not double shots. They're usually a single shot. You may need to use 2 of those pods to extract sufficient to get a decent cup of coffee out of them. This third extraction is just so bitter, it's going to take away from the overall enjoyment of the coffee. So I'm going to discard that. So in this case, I really know what the extraction time is for this particular setup. So when I get a different batch of coffee, a different roast maybe, I would adjust that again and just do this very simple tuning method to make sure that I get my personal preference in terms of taste out of each shot of coffee. And that will go a long way for you to avoid making those bitter coffees that are just so distasteful and really destroy your enjoyment of this wonderful beverage. So please subscribe to the channel. We would hate you to miss out. Please boot that like button if you've enjoyed this video, because that really does help us to get out there. Drop us a comment, let us know what machine you've got, and we can tailor future videos to cover those particular machines in detail.